Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to Inter Games for another banger. So, I made a video on the main channel a few days ago about what gods should come to SMITE 2. I polled my audience and the SMITE Reddit, asked about over 800 people. And basically the idea was you rank all gods on 1 to 5 scale on like how high priority you think they are to come to SMITE 2 very soon. And Weak3n checked it out on stream and gave his thoughts on it and his input of his chat and stuff like that. So I thought I would react to his reaction, do a bit of React-ception. We all love a bit of that. And yeah, I just think this is a really interesting topic that people have quite strong opinions on and quite different and varying opinions on. And yeah, of course, definitely check out Weak3n. I'm sure if you watch my channel, you probably already know who Weak3n is. He's a lot bigger than I am, but yeah, definitely check him out, give him some love. Let's just jump right in. Okay, so first up, I intentionally left the gods that have already been added to SMITE 2 in the survey and asked people to rate them as
that was smart,
so we can get a feel for if they were good choices or not according to the
That's a really, so I'm glad he did that.
With the overall average of all... Yeah, I feel like it's interesting to keep these gods in, because, you know, people do have very strong opinions on, like, what's currently been added to SMITE 2. There's a lot that people think shouldn't have been there. And there's also quite a few that people think should be there. But yeah, these are the scores for that. Gods being at 3.21, I would say that any god above that in these scores was generally a good choice to bring, according...
Okay. I'm surprised Jingwei isn't lower. I'm
understandable.
So you can't see Loki. Loki's at a 3.1. Neither.
I believe Jingwei was the lowest scorer out of all of these, though. So she definitely is like one that shouldn't have come to the community.
The highest on this list is Ymir. Ymir is the highest, and then Neith. Am I missing anything here? Oh no, sorry. Ymir, Ares, Neith, Bellona are the highest.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Followed by Fenrir, I believe.
People.
To the community. That leaves just Nuwa,
the average is 3.21.
Loki, and Susano as gods that were bad choices according to you guys. With a few others that came close, like Hades, who is bang on the average, and Odin and Sol, who are pretty close to it. Of course, being better than average just means they should come in the top half of the roster, not necessarily this early.
I thought somebody would be like crazy high.
Data, we're looking at Ymir, yeah, it's kind of hard to get like crazy high numbers when it's averaged out over 800 people. You know, if it was a smaller sample size of like, you know, maybe I asked like 10 content creators or something, then you will get some really high numbers. But just because there's so many people with so many different opinions, there will be some people that even if a god is really popular and everyone wants them to come, there'll be some people that still rate it at 1. So, you know, the scores don't really ever get like anywhere close to 5 in this. And Ares as the top 3 picks,
which I guess 3.88 is really high.
Yeah, it is.
It's still really, really high.
3.88 is definitely like probably top 10%.
I think just having like a 0.1, 0.2 difference is big.
Kicking it off with the assassins, here's the top 5 most and least wanted assassins for SMITE 2.
Holy
so immediately we can notice that Thor is by far the most wanted
assassin. Thor is at a 4.19? How the fuck do we not have Thor yet, dude? Everyone is dumbfounded by this shit.
Yeah, literally everyone, dude. It's insane we don't have Thor yet, if I'm going to be honest. I think it was the second highest scorer out of every single god on the entire list, only beaten by Ra, which we'll get to in a second.
It's crazy. He's gonna be one of the highest, period.
Point above the next
out of all gods.
Which, when the survey is out of 5, is a massive gap. I'm glad to see it's not just my delusional Thor main brain rot that wants.
I mean, I think we're getting. I believe that before like middle of next year, we'll have all of these assassins. That's my genuine.
Oh
guess.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
Then I think we're getting.
Except maybe Suku. I'm not sure if we'll get Suku that early. Although clearly he is quite highly requested by the community. But I think these 4, Thor, Rat, Pele, Nemesis, will definitely get those relatively soon, I think. But by the middle of next year, probably, yeah.
And Kali. I think we'll end up with 6 of these 10 gods that are on the screen.
The community generally agrees too. Rat and Pele, I think, are also great picks. Some or all of Rat's acorns could even have active or toggle effects, as I've suggested in previous videos.
Rat's acorns can be OP in SMITE 2.
Yeah, dude, they've got so many crazy interactions. Nemesis and Suku are interesting to see this high, if I'm honest, though. For Nemesis, I can
love them.
As we don't currently have
Nemesis is one of my highest viewed videos of all time. Like,
yeah, to be honest, I was very surprised about like Nem's popularity, to be honest. I did not realize she was as popular as she is. I very rarely see her in my own games, personally.
I have like regular gameplay videos of all time.
Kali, Bakasura, or Araki could. Suku, though, for me personally, there will be a lot of
people love Nemesis.
I would add before him. Moving on to the bottom 5, we have 2 clear outliers at the bottom of the pack, those being Araki and Bakasura.
Dude, the 2 AA of the 3 AA junglers.
Yeah, they're just unfun, dude. Unfun to play against.
I love Araki, man. Fuck Baka.
Kali is next up, and while she is substantially higher than the last two, she still scores very low, and I can see why. She's similar to Arachne and Baka in that she just holds
Bastet, I think Bastet's fun to play in her current state in SMITE 1.
Literally can't die.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, Bastet's kind of fun to play, but she's so unfun to play against. That's the problem. Like, when you want to add gods, it's like, it's a balance of those two things. Like, you want the god to be both fun to play and relatively fun and fair to play against. And Bastet is fun to play, in my opinion. Not like one of my most favorites, but she is fairly fun to play, but to play against is just a bit cancer sometimes. Her health on kill.
Legion, thank you for 73 months, dude.
Being low priority
Let's go, Legion.
She can be to deal with. They've attempted minor reworks on her many times already with not much success, so we'll see how she fares coming into the sequel.
Hi-Rez should use this video.
I think is the black sheep. I agree. They probably will, to be honest. I doubt they wouldn't find this information at least useful. They might not use the video, you know, as in directly, these are going to be the next 5 assassins. But they probably will take a look at this, because, like, popularity is probably a large part of what they're considering when they're bringing gods to the game. Like, there's other things. They want to bring a balance of playstyles. They want to bring a balance of easy and difficult, balance of classes, all that kind of stuff. But I think this information will be useful to them. Black sheep in this bottom 5, as he's not really that toxic or unfun to play.
Who's the baddest goddess? Your mom.
People are not super well
God damn it, dude.
Moving on from the assassins though, let's take a look at the top and bottom.
Alright, some guardians. Yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? Potato ass pole fucking responders.
Dude, it's just the community. It's just the community. It's my audience and also the SMITE Reddit, which is a much wider, broader community that isn't going to be influenced directly by me. And probably more of the responses came from Reddit than came from my own audience. Because you can reach a wider amount of people when you post to Reddit, and the post got a decent amount of traction. I assume he's raging about Khepri here. Like, honestly, I'm fine with Khepri coming early, in my opinion. I would prefer Geb. I think Geb is a little more healthy and fun than Khepri. I would put Geb over Khepri personally, but I think at least one of these two needs to come, so we have one of those more, like, dedicated defensive supports. Obviously, Geb can do, like, you know, blink ults, initiate the fight, do a lot of damage as well, but he is also a very defensive support and could be played that way. You mostly agree with these
Artio, Kabrakan, and Yamoja being low is criminal.
Artio being as high as she is criminal, in my opinion, dude. Fuck that god, honestly. But yeah, Kabrakan and Yamoja I'm kind of fine with. Like, they could definitely come relatively soon, and I'd be okay with it. Kabrakan's quite unique, and Yamoja's, like, probably the hardest god in the game. Geb definitely
criminal.
So we have some more defensive supports available. Cthulhu is just iconic and will push the new tech of UE5 in a really cool way. Sobek is a tried and true classic, and Ganesha is just a really well-designed god.
Sobek Geb don't surprise me.
I mostly agree with these two. Bake comes in dead last by a decent margin.
Bake should be not even ported.
You know what, dude, I kind of do agree with that. Like, that's a hard take. There's very few gods that I would say don't port at all. Like, I would just say bring the blast. But yeah, Bake is just such a brain dead, uninspired design, in my opinion. I feel like so much more could be done, like in that kind of design space of like an auto attack guardian. Ones I personally would add. Kumba comes next, which may have some recency bias from his SMITE 1 escapades, but even without that, he's just a pretty toxic design. Artio is another toxic design, and I dread seeing her with access to Bluestone. Kabrakan, I think, could have some potential if they tweaked him a little bit, as he'd be a cool showcase of mixed scaling, and building Poly and Hydras in one build on him would be pretty funny, though I can see why he's fairly low down. And finally, we have Yamoja, which sort of has arguments both ways. She's extremely unpopular, but also extremely unique and important to pro play, so I can see why she's here for the general public, but I think she is.
Thank you, Marshmallow. Welcome back. 4 months, baby. Guardian average is a 3.31. Yeah, dude, Guardians definitely placed substantially higher than any other class. I think the only ones that came relatively close were Warriors. Although interestingly, they didn't have like any of the like super high placing ones. The mainly like super high placing ones are like Thor and Ra, but they also had like a generally higher average score than most of the other classes. Hence why even one of the bottom 5 in Yamoja is still above a 3. Very high. So Whale's even lower. Average, so even the lowest Guardian is still quite a high score. All right, next up we have the Hunters. So an overall fairly good list in my opinion. Medusa is one that I've called for adding soon, as she takes the top spot by a decent margin. Artemis is a little high at number 2 in my opinion, but I do. Artemis is a very popular should probably take hunter. Yeah, she is very popular. Priority hunter, as I agree. Classic that's fun as hell to play, and Heimdall being on here and no Ul is surprising. Yeah, Ul was quite high, I think. Maybe sort of like top 6, top 7, top 8 maybe in terms of hunters. Ul did place quite high. It's surprising though. But I gotta say, I agree. He's a really unique design. Heimdall sucked in SMITE 1 though, like for the longest time. So maybe people think he'll be good in SMITE 2. He's just quite fun and unique. Like Heim's one of the more unique hunters in the game that isn't just like I'm gonna hold left click and that's all I do machine. Like obviously he holds left click pretty well. He's a hunter, but he also has like some interesting unique elements with like the vision, the variable will cooldown on his teleport, like horn cancels and stuff like that. It's a pretty cool design. I don't agree with at all. This is due to my personal hatred of this.
People love Danza.
I'm well aware he plays quite high due to the community. Yeah, dude, I hate it, but people do love Danza.
Cool in over Heimdall.
As for the bottom 5, Marty comes in last by a decent margin, which is to be expected.
No ability hunters.
This guy is
Kinda rough.
super unfun to play. Yeah, not in the top 5. Ula did place relatively high, and we do have Neath already. But yeah, a lot of the ability hunters placed relatively low, especially Marty and AMC.
Hunters are mages, so like they're ability hunters, but they play like mages.
I expected, but I am happy to see it, especially with the changes they recently made to her 3. She's even more annoying to play against, and given she's already janky as hell in Smite 1, I can't imagine the levels of jank she'd have in Smite 2 at the moment. Cherno, I agree with. This guy just destroys how Conquest is supposed to be.
Yeah, because global OP.
Yeah, pro play. Nut is just another recently released.
They can make Nut actual fun in Smite 2.
Finally, we have AMC, who
Fuck
I'm
AMC.
a little mixed on.
No, the AMC not coming.
To play, but that's kind of outweighed by how toxic he is to play against. Not to mention he'd be able to build like Loki in Smite 2 with Bluestone Crusher, Heartseeker, and Soul Reaver all in one build. No one wants to see that until the game is in a more balanced state.
Agree.
So generally,
yeah, dude, MC with Reaver is not going to be fun.
The largest class, we have the mages. So the top 5, I gotta say, I completely and wholeheartedly agree.
Hey, okay, I don't know where the Baron comes from.
I like Baron, dude.
But the other 4?
Yeah, dude, the mages were good picks, honestly, I gotta say.
Proud.
I highly agree
proud.
with the mages.
So fucking proud.
Yeah.
These 2 are must ports. Janice is one of the higher skill mages, and Scylla is perfection.
Yeah, Scylla's great, dude.
While maybe needing some balance adjustments due to the strength and int scaling, probably should be in the game already. Giannis is one that I half expected to not make the top 5, as he does get a lot of hate in the community due to being pretty toxic to play against when piloted by a good player, but he's very popular and extremely unique, and I completely agree with him being here. Scylla is another one that's just a classic mage that completely dunks on the current mage offerings in Smite 2 in terms of just being straight up fun to play. And Baron is one of the best design gods in the entire game, straight up. He's pretty unique and can even fill more.
I don't understand the Baron love. Where did this come from?
Baron's just sick, dude. Like, he's such a compact, like, simple, well-designed kit. Like, he doesn't take much thought from you to play, I'll admit that. You know, he's not gonna be like a Giannis or anything like that. But he's just simple, mindless fun. You know, you just press 3 and then you press 2 and 1, and you can, like, juke around. He's got a lot of self-peel aspects. He's got some uniqueness with, like, the Hysteria and being able to build a little bit bruiser or tank. Got a lot of, like, varied play styles. His ult's pretty cool to use. Like, he's just a fun, good design, in my opinion.
5, I mostly but don't completely agree here. The bottom 3 in Freya, Nox, and Yuhuang I do agree with. Freya is already unbalanceable. Add crit and strength scaling into the equation.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Break the game. She definitely needs.
Yeah, dude. Crit Freya is gonna be absolute carnage if they add her to Smite 2 without any kind of rework, dude.
Work if she's going to be added anywhere but the last few. Nox is similar but less so game breaking and more so just annoying and cringe to play against. Yuhuang is different again in that, yes,
what up, Secret? This is Intersect's video where he polled 800 people on what gods should and shouldn't be ported to Smite 2. Like, the order, basically.
For Hebo and Marman, I personally do like these 2, especially Marman.
So these ones on top should all be ported soon and like for early, and then the other ones shouldn't be ported early. They should be ported last.
That's the idea.
Let's look at our last class for the video.
This doesn't surprise me at all, and I heavily agree.
Yeah, I think the warrior list was one of the better lists as well. I think mages and warriors are probably the 2 best lists in my opinion, because the top 5 mages I have no problems with. The top 5 warriors I also have no problems with, and there's generally like only small disagreements on the bottom 5 for both of those classes as well.
And Hercules is probably the single most iconic warrior in the game and a true classic.
I agree.
King Arthur is extremely unique and could use the new systems in really interesting ways.
King Arthur's gonna be one of the first warriors all day. He's one of the most popular warriors in the game.
Yeah, he's just so unique and fun, dude. I'm not surprised he's popular.
It's pretty much the same. I personally don't
That's
find him that
actually
fun,
kind of like a perfect 5 warrior list.
I agree, dude. Like, for my personal list, Guan Yu wouldn't be on there because I don't think he's that fun. Maybe even, honestly, for my personal list, Wukong might not be on there. But when I'm actually considering the fact of, like, you want to get a balance of playstyles, you want to get stuff that everyone will enjoy, and, you know, I'm not just making my own personal list, I do think this is probably the perfect warrior list in terms of the next 5 that should come. I have some mixed feelings on. The mana at the bottom makes complete sense. He's been breaking Smite 1 for years upon years at this point and could use some kind of rework to make his base kit more interesting and useful and his ultimate less brain dead.
I mean, I don't want to play against the gods, but I agree.
I know Shiva mains will be sad about this, but he's not very popular and brings nothing unique to the table compared to more popular and fun warriors. Erlang Shen is one I am sad to see here. I understand why he's here. He breaks the game on a level only paralleled by the mana in terms of warriors, but I do feel with the new systems in Smite 2 of no classes and role flexibility being a priority, Erlang could actually be allowed to just be a jungler in Smite 2 and not be forced into the solo lane. Could he use some changes going forward? Probably yes, but I think he could work. Nike, I completely agree with. She's super annoying to play against and not even that fun to play. And finally, Osiris, I think, is sort of suffering from the same situation as your Moja. Warriors had the second highest class average, and it just so happens Osiris is in the bottom 5 despite having an okay score.
I said these three for the last like 2 months.
I think everyone's been saying these three. So for some reason, either Hyra's aren't listening or they're just being slow to respond with it. But yeah, these three are by far the ones that I've seen everyone requesting. You know, when someone complains about the God roster on Twitter and says, why aren't X here? It's always at least one of these three, if not all of them. They should have been in the game on the first closed alpha weekend, in my opinion. Like, I don't see why these weren't immediately on Hyra's radar. Like, you don't need to do a poll like this to know that these gods are popular and well loved. If you're in touch and you're on the pulse of the community, you will know that these three gods really should have been there immediately. They're very popular play rate. Everyone loves them. They're iconic. All that good stuff. It stacks pretty heavily on the Mage and Guardian side of things with 4 mages.
Fuck Cthulhu, fuck Khepri, all the rest are fine.
Dude, no, Cthulhu's pretty sick. Like, he can be really annoying to play against, absolutely. And especially, you know, recently, especially with like Curse Weaver and just him being like really OP. But I think he's super unique, he's super fun, he'll push the boundaries a lot of what like UE5 can do. You could have some changes going into Smite 2 to make him even cooler. And he's just iconic, like in terms of, you know, pop culture, not mythology necessarily, but, you know, Lovecraft kind of stuff is very popular and well loved in the community as well. I think it's very important to bring. I think they could also maybe even bring him alongside like another release in the Great Old Ones Pantheon. That's something people have been asking for a long time. You know, get like Nyarlathotep or the King in Yellow or Azathoth or something like that alongside his release would be really cool. Adding these as the next 10 gods is probably not the best course of action, but adding these very soon with a sprinkling of other high-performing hunters, warriors, and assassins will be the best way to go. I've discussed all of these already in the class section, so I won't repeat myself here, but the general list is extremely solid. If any of these 10 gods were the next ones to be added, I and the community at large will be very happy. It's worth noting that Ra
got in the game. It would be Mordred if he wasn't fucking ass.
Yeah, dude, Mordred's so fun, but 1, he's not very good, and 2, he's so buggy in Smite 2. Oh my god. Feels like every time you use that guy's big charged ultimate, you fucking start spinning around in the air while not even hitting anyone or like getting stuck inside walls and shit. Like, if he was less buggy and more powerful, Mordred would be in probably my top 10 favorite gods. But let's move on to the bottom 10 gods that should come to Smite 2 last, according to you guys. Another generally good list, in my opinion. Of course, this is assuming none of these gods get substantial reworks going into Smite 2.
So here's the problem with this. I understand the AA junglers being at the bottom of this list, but you need them in the game. They start to create a balance within the game because items have to be balanced differently because they exist.
Completely agree. Completely agree. That is the take you should have. As I mentioned kind of earlier in the video, like at least alluded to earlier in the video, like you can't just take this list and add them in that order, or take this list that's on the screen at the moment and add all of these last, because you do need a balance of play styles and you do need a balance of like classes and all that kind of stuff. And if you just never add an auto attack jungler, you're gonna have problems with like that those items are going to be either imbalanced or they're not even going to exist, and you need a balance of play styles to be able to create the game in a cohesive way. And so yeah, I do think one of the auto attack junglers coming relatively soon, even though they're generally quite hated and people won't be happy that they're coming. I do think it's important to get at least one of them in there. For me, honestly, I would say Erlang should be it personally, but probably, you know, they're either going to try and make Erlang a bit more of a warrior / solo laner, or they're not going to bring him very quickly. So yeah, maybe Kali, I guess, would be the one that I would add.
So it creates like a whole nother game. It changes everything about it. You have to have one of these three. We're going to get Kali. It's already been data mined. So I'm fine with it, but you can't not have a single auto attack jungler.
Great additions if their core gameplay
Yeah, I do agree.
were fixed first. Though I gotta say, with how SMITE 1 has handled reworks for the last 8
They're some of the most popular junglers for low-level players to learn the game as well, so it just makes no sense to not have them.
Yeah, that's true. And honestly, to that end, honestly, I would maybe rather see Arachne even than Kali. Like, they both cause kind of similar issues, just Arachne's early game issues and Kali's late game issues. They both kind of just become unstoppable, especially against not too great players. But I believe Arachne is more popular than Kali and also generally more loved, especially by lower level players. So maybe honestly Arachne should come over Kali. I'm not sure, but yeah, I do agree with the general point that one of these should come relatively quickly.
To play against and make the game more unfun if they're in the match. Shiva is probably the only exception here, and as mentioned before, he's just one of the most basic and boring gods to exist. Other than slight order changes like Freya being at the very bottom, I mostly agree with this list and would be happy if none of these gods made it for a long time.
I hope the
Once
whale
again,
just gets
assuming no
deleted.
major reworks are
Yeah, dude, same. Fuck back here.
coming for them. That's all I have to talk about for the data, but here's the full tier list if you're interested in how
Aha, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, dude, I know everyone wants to see that. That's why I put it at the end of the video. Everyone's like, why are my favorite gods sitting on the tier list?
Mercury. You guys see Mercury in this bitch? Where did they vote Mercury? There he is.
Where is Mercury? Oh yeah, he's like pretty much bang right in the middle. Like that is probably the most in the middle that you could be with Mercury. Maybe ever so slightly above average.
Who else is in the top? Merlin? Agni, I 100% agree with.
Yeah, Merlin and Agni are ones that I've seen highly requested, honestly.
Lona was a questionable one. Sylvanas, we are getting late, bro. Late. This is actually surprising. Horus on this list is wild. Some of the gods that are already in being on the list, like Kukulkan, Bellona. So many of
I said Bellona shouldn't have come soon in one of my like personal take videos, and I got a lot of comments saying, "Are you insane? She's basically the poster child of SMITE." And it's like, yes, in the past she has kind of been a bit of a poster child. She's not as much anymore, but also like she's just kind of boring and basic. I would much rather have some other warriors in the game. I think like kit gameplay wise is much more important than if they're the face of SMITE or not. Like obviously that stuff is important, but yeah, Bellona's gameplay design is just incredibly boring to play and to play against, honestly. Like she used to be one of my favorite gods like way back in the day, but she's just aged kind of poorly in my opinion. There's much more interesting warriors that could have been added.
these gods aren't fun. Why do we want them in the game? Hey, they just Arquette here, shit. Like, Vulcan being low here is crazy to me.
People really dislike playing against Vulcan, that's the thing. I don't mind him as much, but I can see why people do dislike playing against him. He's just like a kind of run away, you can't catch me, I'm going to put down turrets and be annoying kind of playstyle sometimes, so I can see why he's lower.
No, like, high here? I don't... Scotty's low on the list. Kronos is low on the list?
Dude, who enjoys playing Kronos? Like, honestly.
Jean-Qui is low on the list. Ichel could be so fun. Probably won't be, but could be Ao Kuang low on the list. Persephone not at the bottom. Chunga is going to be low on the list because Chunga just went through a period of time where she was the best god in the game for like 3 months.
There will be some bias there in terms of like how strong or weak have they been in SMITE 1 like recently. It's very hard to know and take into account like the entire history of the god in SMITE 1 when you kind of make this list. There'll be a lot of people that either don't remember or didn't play for like the entire history of the god, so...
It wasn't even an argument. She was like the best god. I thought Apollo would be higher. Fool should be higher. Maui would probably be pretty good in SMITE 2. No Kuzimbo. Raijin would probably be a good port. Fuck Doth. Ravana. Ravana's another one. Ravana is like a basic like jungle bait, like a base god to have. So
completely agree. Ravan is one of the most compact. He's almost a little bit like Baron in that way. Like he's compact, he's simple, but he's effective. And I think he's a great god to learn the game with as well. So yeah, I think Ravan coming soon. Like he's in the lower half of the list, but honestly, I would put Ravan in before I would put a lot of the assassins above him.
I think having Ravan in the game is valuable.
Having to sit through ads during a weak daddy stream would be calling a fire giant with only one sunder up.
Oh dude.
Watch out, you might get kicked, Dusty. Maybe 11 months.
Dude, that's talking about the drama recently in the SPL. But yeah, that is Weak3n's reaction to my video. I thought I'd post this to the second channel. Obviously, you can check out Weak3n. You can check out the main video without our commentary on my main channel if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, it's a really interesting topic. It's something that you want to get other people's opinions on. That's literally why I did this poll, to get the general community sentiment. I've given my opinions on it in the past. I've given a little bit more in this video, and Weak3n as well, obviously. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this React-ception, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.